Good morning, everybody, on this very sunny November day here on a more sunnier topic, which is the IT-OT Convergence. My name is Helmut Reisinger. I'm the CEO of Orange Business Services, and we would like to, with you to share a few thoughts on how we see this critical topic for your companies and the competitiveness of your companies. As you have seen, as we are talking OT world, you have seen probably the evacuation guidelines, the exit, because health and safety in the OT world is very critical, is over here to your left from your point of view. But today we would like to share not only IT and OT convergence and how the Internet of Things is enabling this, but we also would like to give you a bit of feeling of what we have seen, how to scale this innovation for your company, and also how to mitigate the cyber defense risk. And to this extent, I will be joined later on by the leader of our industrial cyber defense practice, and also by the leader of our AI and big data in the industrial hemisphere. Now, talking about innovation at scale, the OT world is the physical value chains of any given company. And what we have seen is it's a question of competitiveness. OECD has said 70% of global trade involves today multinational global value chains. It's not only data that is flowing globally, it is semi-manufactured goods, design, or as well the topic on production sites that are completely interconnected. Yet, what we have seen as well is global trade has actually fallen. It's still growing, but it has shrunk with several indications to it. You see from 5.5% down to 2% only. And what we perceive, talking to multinational clients, is digitalization of the operational world is a crucial factor of competitiveness. You know that we are a Paris-headquartered company. The leader of France Industry, of the association that regroups all the global and local industries in France, has said, when we did together a launch of the co-innovation approach on 5G, in France only 30% only of the OT world today is digitized. And for us as the French industry, or global industries, digitizing this part and connecting it and connecting the unconnected is actually a key question of competitiveness, a key question of long-standing performance in the industry. And digital value chains are critical. And it starts, and this is a good example of a global client in terms of shoe manufacturing. It starts with the sentiment analysis that is there in terms of purchasing behaviors, in terms of creating real-time demand. Of course, when we then design it in terms also of the production line, it's the question of how to integrate with industrial automation systems. And we go into in-depth a little bit later on. And how to enable digital twinning. You have heard also on this conference the topic on 3D printing already. Then, of course, the question, how do you do quality control? We will share with you later on an example on how we industrialized quality control with visual computing. Actually, it's a big area of global productivity increase. And then, of course, IoT as well to record what is the customer purchasing and the experience sentiment to it. And what you see out of there is the effect of also integrating digital into this operational value chain, physical value chain, actually enables that you can do individual mass customization. Bringing it down from something like 60, 90 days to produce a new series of shoes down to only 1 day. Morgan Stanley, as we always trust investment bankers, have said shifting actually to AI-enabled digital production gives you potentially a 15% increase on your top line. Which of global corporations would not love to have 15% in terms of increase on the top line. Yet, today, and this is the reason why we call it IT and OT convergence, OT to some extent is an island. On an anecdotal basis, we had our 2017 Customer Advisory Board with close to 20 global clients of ours. Two perceptions of this. The global CEO of a big pharmaceutical company said, you know what, for me, the operational technology world, this is like the Wild West. I'm held accountable for it, but I have not really the influence and the ownership on it. So you see, it's not only a technological question, it's also a governance question. On the other hand, speaking with a large car manufacturer who runs a big plant, he says, sometimes, honestly, I don't feel understood by our digital guys in the IT world. They are not really close to the métier, as they would say in France, of what we are actually driving and how we are running our operational world. So the OT world is the physical management of devices, of processes and events. And you see here examples from the different industries, whether it's about smart asset tracking in the retail side, whether it's about the smart buildings. Afterwards, we'll share with you something about the smart construction site that we have enabled in Australia, where, of course, weather sensitivities, contextual factors of traffic play a crucial role, or on the transport and logistics side, the digitalization of the supply chains, of course, plays a crucial role in there. Construction, the smart mining aspect, and manufacturing. Yet, all of it is then complemented with the IT side, which is actually the digital mirroring of what is being done on the physical side. And that's, of course, the digitalization of the orders, the inputs, the outputs, and, of course, to enable the industrial knowledge worker. This is also what we at Orange Business Services call, that's the era of the Internet of Enterprise. It's not the Internet of Consumer. Internet of Consumer, which, by the way, is being largely dominated by US and by Chinese big players, is mainly about connecting people. It's about sharing emotions. Internet of Enterprise is connecting people, the knowledge workers, connecting sites, connecting objects, devices, processes, as you see on this picture. It's not about, like we do as individuals on the consumer side, sharing emotions on Instagram. It's about sharing know-how, knowledge worker know-how. And therefore, on the consumer side, this is very much a mobile play. In the industrial internet or the Internet of Enterprise, it's very much an ecosystem play where different agents, processes need to interwork together. And one key component, and that's why we've asked our leader for industrial cyber defense to come up on stage later on, is you need to protect the intellectual property of your company, which means end-to-end cyber protection. Now, what are some obstacles? Because we talked about scaling, innovating at scale. First of all, only 30% of industrial internet or Industry 4.0 programs really have been scaled. 70% are stuck, sometimes in proof of concept stages. On average, international companies have about 8 initiatives ongoing in this field. Again, because, as we would say in French, there is the rendezvous between the IT world and the OT world. And it's not only a technical question, it's also a human and an organizational question. You see there, global trade has gone down, as I told you, but so has, if you take the United States, the manufacturing labor productivity has gone down. And this is a very reliable source. It's actually the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. This tells you that the physical value chain has reached its kind of limits of automation, etc. It needs to be complemented by the digital aspect. On the other hand, 66%, 2/3 of companies that have those global value chains, they're saying it's difficult, it's hard to access the OT data. Sometimes totally isolated systems on old industrial protocols. We will share with you afterwards an example how we made it possible in a brownfield environment to connect something that is unconnected in a very hardcore concrete industry. And for you, it's no big surprise. It's the intellectual property that's at stake. 77% say cyber defense and protecting my assets is crucial. And it's hard to imagine, it's already hard today, that we take into account the behavioral aspects, the organizational aspects, the training aspects, that cyber is taken into account even in the administrative world, in the classical IT world. Believe me, according to our experts and what we are seeing with customers, it's even more so in the OT world. This consciousness, the awareness that this is critical. Now, critical elements in this field. And this is the structure and how we're going to dive now into a few examples, and then we deep dive into the cyber defense aspects of it. You have two axes there. One is the smart and the connected terminals, the smart and connected processes, the smart machines. That's the vertical axis. On the other side, it's not only a technical question or an asset question. It's a people and skill and competency and risk awareness question. It's a smart industrial knowledge worker. And what you see there is 4 key elements we believe that are critical in the OT space to connect it into the digital world. We believe enterprises will be more and more not only hyper-connected, they will be cloud-enabled. And we believe strongly into the multi-cloud world that my colleague Ravin will share with you later on. We also believe it's going to be very much data-driven. And then you can aggregate, and then you can organize, and you can extract, and you can apply your algorithms. We also strongly believe when we include all the parts of the value chain of a given company, there will be intelligence that will be moving towards the edge. Because you cannot control everything centrally. And why is that? Just look at the global geopolitics. Uncertainty has gone up. We see today a fragmentation of data ecosystem. You have the Chinese, from your angle it's here, the Chinese data ecosystem. You have the Russian ecosystem. You have the European ecosystem, which is basically also in line, of course, it's GDPR, compliance-oriented. You have the US ecosystem. Again, in the US, it's not one country and one size fits all. California is approaching itself very closely to the European standards. Argentina has adopted the European standards. And if you are globally connecting your value chains, the OT world, take into account, it's a question how to make sure to combine edge intelligence, where to store the data, where to apply the algorithms, and of course how to collect the data, but as well then how to do the right cyber defense. This all makes this IT and OT convergence at global level a pretty interesting topic. And we're going to deep dive now into 4 areas. OT and IT converge should help you to drive up worker efficiency and also health and safety. It should also help you to do asset management better, moving assets or fixed assets. It should also help you to create value in your value chain by process optimization. And finally, Internet of Enterprise is an ecosystem play. Also, how can you drive innovation in your ecosystem of the OT world? Now, let's look first into the worker efficiency and safety. 2 examples. The first one is a global mining company in very precious materials, what they are extracting. There, as we are talking about an ecosystem, we have worked and designed together with the customer, plus with a partner called RealWare, and enabled virtual reality to be given to the experts with data overlays. It's basically, if you're in those tough conditions, it brings intelligence to the front line. You don't have to fly somebody, and their mines are in really, really remote areas. but it's worth going there because there is some very precious stuff that is taken out. But you can have visual display. Actually, we combined it with a data-driven module. It's a visual display of 7-inch where you can actually guide your worker who is in the mine and give advice to him. It can also be used in the machinery environment. If you have your head stuck and you're trying to repair something, the last thing probably you want to do is to find and look for a manual. You can actually voice enable these inputs and give work instructions. Or you can contextualize it because you're collecting data from a given industrial asset, and you can actually guide this person in this context much better. So it's about work environment, giving knowledge and making this person more effective, but as well bringing down cost of doing good support, making it the arrival of the specific know-how that you need, even in very remote conditions, cost effective. The other topic, by the way, this global monitoring, this was actually a case in Africa. To the right-hand side, this is a case in Russia. Orange Business Services, we are the only non-Russian operator with a country-wide license for voice, data, and encryption from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. Here, we are talking about a Western company that is producing in Russia. And it's a fast-moving consumer goods company, and they had very big concerns due to some incidents on health and safety. What we have done in this case, again, it's about health and safety and worker environment. We have put geolocation sensors on the wearables of the workers in order to detect if there's any anomaly, if the person has fallen, etc., etc. This was important in the corporate policy of this company acting in, by the way, not in Moscow downtown, closely very much to the Ural Mountains. So this was about worker efficiency. Let's deep dive into the next one, which is about process optimization. And you know, 300 years ago, it was Adam Smith who said, the market economy is working because, or capitalism is working, the wealth of nations is generated because invisible hands are working together. Here, it's about process optimization. And yes, to a large extent, today we have manual processes. On the left-hand side, a very big pharmaceutical group. They are producing vaccines. What are they doing? They are looking for the bacteria and how they're evolving to have the right quality and the right amount of bacteria. And this was a manual process, repetitive, the same stuff, and you need to quality ensure it. Here, we used visual computing and AI to look for the anomalies. It's basically a machine learning bacteria growth exercise and implementation that we have done. Today, this is automated. And the people, the knowledge workers, can focus on the real anomalies. Why is it that on this Petri dish, the bacteria is totally different compared to the series that we have seen? By the way, here, Bain & Company, the consulting firm, says this market of visual analytics and visual-based machine learning will show tremendous growth over the coming years because quality assurance is a fantastic application. The other side is the brownfield example that I gave you. Concrete production of concrete, beton, is not the most sexy business we would think on the planet. Yet, there is different recipes, different mixes on how to do a specific concrete for A or for a purpose of B. The challenge is those mixers, conveyors, machinery, it is really not connected. So what we try to do there is, because they have very specific protocols, is we have put together what we called translation gateway of data to visualize the production chain. What is the effect for this? And it's again a multinational concrete manufacturer that you know certainly very well. It has tremendously reduced working capital. plus as well driven up productivity in the production environment. So this is a case of brownfield data integration and analytics. So this was process optimization, the invisible hand, and making it more effective. When we look to the next case, which is about asset management. I go back on this one, because again, here you see the industrial resources in the OT world, and how can you better take advantage of them. Again, two examples. The first one, Arkema, a specials chemical company leader, headquartered in France, but also multinational. How we came about this, by the way, is not because we are also their network operator and we are providing a lot of collaboration solution for them. It was our professional services team that went into one of their factories in the Netherlands. And they did, together with the OT people, in this case it was not the IT team, it was the OT team, some analysis what hinders them in doing the job better. And they have what they call swing production, which means they are specialty chemical producers. It's not one chemical and you produce this for 300 days. They are switching production very frequently, even during a day. The challenge is, like this worker here, you need to go with your forklift truck or yourself and putting certain ingredients to mix the kind of formula that is required for this very specific chemical blend that you want to create. And as people are involved, same thing like on cyber defense, people are involved, it's a risk. There's a risk of error. So what basically we have been doing is, we have IoT tagged the product components, the ingredients, in the warehouse. We put weigh scales onto the forklift truck chain, which again, the right ingredient, the right amount. And then we have actually used ruggedized mobile devices to also follow through. These are the different steps, what you have to do next in making sure that the right recipe is being produced. On the right-hand side, you see an example of asset tracking that is more classic. The reason why I mention this is because, yes, we are a mobile operator in lots of European and African countries, but this is actually an example that we have deployed in Houston, in Texas, for a global oil and gas company. This is not based on 4G, it's not based on 3G, it's based on LoRa, a more cost-effective way to provide on-campus asset tracking. These are very expensive moving parts, special trucks, special vehicles, around a very big campus. Everything in the US is big, so are also the oil and gas campuses down in Houston. And what we did there is not only to be enable the tracking, but also to geofence, that there is an alert if some of this special machinery that is mobile is moving out of certain boundaries. Again here, this is a case of better asset tracking that can be vehicles, can be tools, it can be ingredients. It can be on one side, it can be on different sides across the OT value chain. Last point, it's about ecosystem innovation. It's not only one company or one player that brings together the right solutions. Here, in this case, this brings us down under into Australia. The Melbourne region has a big problem, which is they are growing very fast in terms of population. Traffic is heavy, and they still have about 50 different so-called level crossings where trains are crossing streets. Barriers are coming down, cars have to wait, and they want to remove this. There's actually a level crossing removal authority that has been created by the government of Victoria. Is this typically our métier as Orange Business? Not really. But we teamed up with GHD. This is, particularly in Asia and Africa and China, a very strong player in engineering. And there what we have done, using IoT, so we bring the IoT connectivity and service expertise and to collect the data to make sure that all of the things to make the construction sites more safe. That's the key requirement from the government of Victoria. And that's why they've asked GHT plus Orange Business Services plus Schneider Electric to come up and team up in a consortium and to sort out this solution, which helps them that all of these big constructions are actually done in a safe way. Last point on ecosystem innovation. You heard about 5G. South Korea has launched it first. We said we don't want to be first, but we want to be right because we want to launch on the officially released standard on 5G. And that's why we announced it in April that we're going to launch 5G in 17 cities across Europe. For us and for our chairman, it's going to be B2B, where major value will be created out of 5G. Why? Because it will enable the real-time enterprise. It will enable where Wi-Fi or where LAN will be too costly to allow for private mobile campus networks. And it will allow the seamless integration of these massified assets that are out there. And of course, for you as a consumer, lower latency and so on. So this real-time effect is critical. What you see there is ongoing co-innovation projects we are running with customers. I will not detail them. They are with Schneider Electric, they're with Lacroix Electronics. And again, it's a medium-sized company, electronics component manufacturer. If you speak to the founder and to the CEO of Lacroix Electronics, what he tells you is, what this brings to me, the real-time capability for me in the production environment, this is cash. As simple as that. There's another project, as you can see, in the ecosystem, both with the French railways or the RATP, the traffic system around Paris, and of course, the connected car and vehicle. This is why also we've not only created smart mobility services, putting all of our mobile capabilities together with the connected objects, but why we also focus on certain métiers, because like in the OT world, it needs a good understanding of the industrial know-how of the industrial and physical value chain. So let me summarize on this front. This Internet of Enterprise, the industrial Internet, there is 4 components of competences, I believe, that are critical in this IT and OT convergence. It's about being data-driven, which calls for being connected, connect the unconnected. It's about enabling cloud. We believe strongly in the hybrid cloud approach, moving more intelligence onto the edge, and of course, to also ensuring end-to-end cyber protection. Now, diving into 2 topics now, which is big data in the industrial environment and into industrial cyber defense, I would ask my colleagues to come up on stage with me. Please welcome Ravin and Jean-Christophe.
After you. Go first.
Maybe I start with Ravin first before I hand over to Jean-Christophe. Ravin, what makes you excited about the topic on IT-OT convergence and your big data approaches that you're doing?
Yes, I think what we see in the industry today is that in the old days, like last year, IT was the star, and you would go with AI and see what that means and so on. And now we see a big shift. Now the industry again is the star, and I think it's a very exciting time that we can now jump on the industry side and make what it actually is, the industry, the star again. So.
Okay, good. Industry is a star. Here is Jean-Christophe, who joined us actually from a big German industrial group to run our industrial cyber defense approach. What do you think are the 2 or 3 key themes in terms of cyber defense before we hand over to you?
The first thing is a human topic. You can try to protect everything, but if the human is not at the center of what you want to protect, it could be IT or OT. The human is really the key aspect. That's really the first point. And the other one is to define the right level of protection of what you want to protect. Of course, we will not protect a nuclear power plant like we will protect a car manufacturing system or things like this. So the level to define is really important, and the human topic should be in the center of what you are doing.
And Jean-Christophe will detail you a little bit now about our cyber defense approach in the industrial environment. Jean-Christophe?
Helmut, thank you. So maybe to understand a bit more what we are calling the convergence between IT and OT, we have to go a bit some technical stuff. First thing is to understand what happened in the field of a shop floor or factory. The first thing is the sensors and the actuators, the thing that are manipulating and moving all the operational parts in your factory. The good example is something that you use to join Barcelona. It's the airport. When you go to the airport, you are somewhere in a factory. Of course, you can't see it, but your luggage is your suitcase before to which your plane is in a factory, or the logistics system that are not visible from us are industrial control system. And they are using sensors and actuators to take your luggage and bring it to the right belt conveyor, as an example. And this is what we are calling the production process. This is instrumental based. Everything on this part is mechanical and electrical. Then, to pilot all those things, we've got the PLCs. This is the brain, the thinking part of the production system. These PLCs are very old now. They are more than 50 years old, but they are completely changing. And it's here that starts the convergence between IT and OT. In the past, the communication between PLCs and sensors and actuators were based on industrial and proprietary protocol. Today, it's IP-based, so it's coming in the IT world. The SCADA, this is the monitoring system. This is computer-based, and this is the machines from which one you can see what happened. The machine from which one you can pilot your installation. This is simply based on Linux, on Windows. This is IT solutions today. By the beginning or middle of 90s, we start to create something called manufacturing execution system, which is here to help you in manufacturing some batches, lots of production, and this is also IT-based. This is the first real link between OT and IT, and here is really the beginning of OT-IT convergence. And then we've got the ERP to plan your logistics and business. All those elements are today based on common mechanisms, which are IT mechanisms. With the arrival of Internet of Things and all those stuff, we start to have in factories some industrial internet. That means that all those sensors and actuators that in the past were not connected are now connected, or it's possible to connect them. And at this level, we start to see very clever sensors. In the past, it was just to say, we are at the right position, we are at the right place. Now, this is really clever instruments, which are based on firmware and microprocessor. So this is really, really clever. And then, at the other hand, we've got the data-driven digital workplace, as presented by Helmut just before. Today, some workers in a factory are using tablets, mobile phone, or industrial component to produce and to manage the production. Of course, all those things are now possible through the cloud or with edge intelligence. What we can see in factories, shop floor, is that the cloud is not so welcome by customers because they have security topic in mind, and as soon as you discuss with them about cloud, there is always a topic. How can you ensure the security of my data? Because in those data are the intellectual property that Helmut talked about just before. And this is really important. I'm thinking about Coca-Cola, the very well-known drink, and the thing they want to protect is really the recipe of what they are doing. So for them, the cloud is possible, but not for sensitive elements like the recipe. So we see more and more edge solutions that are coming. Today, it's possible to have edge solution directly implemented within your PLC on your production line. But there is a common topic of this, is how to protect the overall aspect of all those things. You are in a factory, you can be creating cars, you can be creating planes, or whatever you want. Today, protecting your data is really essential. Why? Because in the past years and months, we can see, unfortunately, big car manufacturers that has been completely stopped with simple ransomware Also the same thing in the world of ship and large cargoes that has been completely stopped just with a simple ransomware. So the protection of industrial system is really, really important. So how can we protect these things? That's almost very simple, at least the principle. The first pillar is to know what you have to protect. And this is really important. It's what we call identify. Because when you are using and protecting a factory, know exactly what you have to protect is important because it will define the level of security you have to implement. As soon as you know what you have, you can define the protection level you have to put in place. It could be micro-segmentation or whatever you want. The idea is to separate your production plan and assets in different parts to make sure that something that hits a part of your production line will not hit the complete factory. Then we have to detect if something happened within your network, if there is a malware running or trying to get into your networks. This detection part is really important. Then we have to prepare the response, how to react in a case of crisis. This is really important part because the reaction part is needing training. There is no small crisis without large training. And then to anticipate, to know what happened within the world. We are talking, of course, about geopolitical aspect, but also to see what happened in different places of the world, to be ready to protect what we have to protect. I'm thinking mainly about the energy sector. In the energy sector, that's really important to see what happened in the other continents, to prepare what can happen in Europe. And we have, by the beginning of this year, a very good example. We saw a lot of energy cuts in Venezuela, and probably it could be coming from the United States. We have no idea of what happened exactly. But at this time, all the other countries in the world were protecting and controlling a lot more what happened on their energy sector. So the anticipation is really a key role in this protection. And maybe to finish, 2 examples on how we help our customers. The first one is an automotive firm who wants to know exactly what they have on their site regarding the OT world by using OT probes. A probe is a component that will detect and read all the information that goes through your network, your industrial network, and by that way, you can prepare the protection of your plan. And then we have the request from a paint and coatings firms that want to have a single managed service provider for OT and the IT, but also cloud security. And that was really interesting because this company was asking us to have something common for the both world, IT and OT. And that was really challenging because to find common solution for these 2 worlds was really complicated, but we did it. Here are the basic lines of how to protect industrial things. Of course, I will explain this in more detail during this afternoon. I will hand over to Raven.
Okay, guys, everybody still there? You've been promised a deep dive, and I have now 6 minutes and 17 seconds. So let's see how that goes. Okay, so I already made the point that technology is what you need in the industrial age to enable what you want to do with your business, right? And so you have these competencies, but then it's only what you make out of it that then makes a valuable business case for you, right? And I will give you some examples of what we did on the next slides. So now, if we talk about industrialization and edge intelligence, I would like to give you 2, let's say, different angles than what the normal cliche of edge intelligence is, right? It's a little computer that's under your desk, it's in your car, but that's not necessarily what edge computing and edge intelligence is all about. We have created for one of the largest luxury car makers in the world a global Hadoop cluster infrastructure So you could call that a very large edge, yeah, being with production environments in China, in Mexico, in the US, and obviously in Europe. And that has been supported by the global network and infrastructure of Orange Business Services. So this is, I think it's a very good example of something. Yeah, I got that, 5 minutes. So this is a very good example of something that's very large, but let's still conceptually an edge, and it's run centrally, but it's distributed globally. And the next thing that we have on the slide, you probably all know that you stand on the train platform and you look at this signs where the train will go, and then it's saying 5 minutes later. So what does it mean? Nothing. Yeah. It only means that the train will not be on time. But then after 5 minutes, you might come to the point where it says 10 minutes later. So now we have created a little machine that is monitoring in real time production data from Deutsche Bahn. You can see that that is monitoring where trains are, which platforms they will be on, and so on. And the machine has learned about the timing of the trains, and so now can give you by the second precise information when the train will most likely approach the train station. And so now the edge is finally the display on the train station, right? And although the machine has been trained centrally, like with humans, yeah, you go to central training, but then you go to your site and then you do something over there. We have done the same thing with the machine, trained it centrally, but then distributed it to the production sites, if you like. Yeah? So, next two examples. You can see the name of the customer here. It's Henkel. So there are various aspects. There's a big digitalization initiative going on, and it covers all sorts of aspects, right? The network layer, but also data science, data lake, and how to enable different business units at the customer to industrialize and bring into production what a central digitalization unit can do using the infrastructure and using data science and data engineering, right? So that's one thing. The other thing, Conrad Electronic, one of the European large electronics retailers you might have heard about. This is very interesting because this is what I think will be the next frontier of data lake engineering. Yeah, so I think today everybody has played around with data lakes, right? Anybody here who has not used data lakes, or which company is not using data lakes? I guess nobody, right? So the next step in this is, now you have your data lake and you have put all the data in, and now to do something meaningful with it for all your business units and for all your all your colleagues, the question is not, do I have the data, because you have it already. The question is, how can I redistribute it to the right part of the data, to the right guys with the right access rights and the right management around the data and the right data governance and privacy that might change from geography to geography. And this is what this project was about, right? Building this layer of data governance on top of a data lake that I'm sure everybody has here, but do you also have this next layer to really do something meaningful and to enable the business to do something good with all the data? So now I've made it in 1 minute we have left, and I think this is a good moment to hand over to Helmut.
Thank you, Ravin. So what we tried to tell you is that all those critical elements of any given value chain, and all of the companies have something in design. Chip companies are typically designing to a large extent in Europe, in the United States. They're manufacturing in Taiwan or in Thailand. Then something is shipped. Then something is sold. And there's an after-sales service. What has happened is globalization, and what has happened is the digital mirroring of this value chain. And this is what we call the digital data journey, or the digital value chain of Orange Business Services, from collecting, transporting our historic core business, storing compute, the cloud story, analytics, but of course it's the digital with a human touch, the share and create, and end-to-end protection. And all of this combining two brains, our carrier-grade brain with this data brain in this world. And we believe strongly value chains have been integrated, and so also the topics about cloud, about edge intelligence, about cyber defense, and about this massive drive on data need to be integrated. I would like to invite you as well to have more session together with Jean-Christophe. You see here it's today at 1:10, so that's typical digital, at 1:10 in the afternoon. It's actually happening in Exhibition Hall Theater 4. Visit us as well in the booth if you're interested that we do a workshop like we have done for other companies in finding out ways how to help your business to be more competitive. And our claim is, and I hope you could see that, innovating together with customers. We believe you, the companies, are thriving on innovation, and we would like to work with you to shape yours. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day, yeah?